Hi guys, I'm Andrea and today I'll be doing my March wrap up. In the month of March, I didn't read that many books, but I definitely did have a month where quality went over quantity. So I read a lot of books that I really enjoyed and I'm super excited to see more of, if they're series or if they're finale seasons. I really enjoyed how they wrapped up. It was just a lot of books where I thought they were all really good, honestly. They were all on the higher end of the rating spectrum, if you can say so. Or if I could say so myself. So the first book I actually read in March was What Happened by Hillary Clinton. It's a memoir and it's about what happened during the 2016 election. And regardless of politics or sides, I think this is a really interesting book about failure. In her memoir, she accepts failure, she accepts responsibility, but she doesn't let herself get consumed by it. She does let grief manifest itself, but she doesn't let herself get dragged down by it, which is something I really enjoyed. I think that when you're young, success is so dependent on external things, right? And sometimes it feels that if you don't have immediate success or if you don't find success in the most straightforward path, that immediately equals failure, devastation, shame, everything just collapses on yourself. And I think it's so easy to fall into those situations. It's easy to fall into that frame of mind. And I enjoyed this book because it showed me hey, shit happens. In other books that I've read that deal with failure and rising, they kind of skim over the negativity and the depression. It's well, you can't let it get to you, because if it does, then you're just gonna fall into a deep hole of despair and you're never gonna get out of it, and then you die. But I really like that this book was no, we're human. You have to explore that failure. You have to explore that side of yourself. You have to grieve, and you have to get that out of your system for you to really reach your true potential. And yeah, that's what I liked and appreciated about this book. Also, side note, I didn't plan anything I was going to say in this video, so there might be a lot of ums and likes and weird cuts. I mean, that already happens anyway, so it won't. Yeah, I'm just gonna shut up now. The next book I read in the month of March was Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi. I actually really enjoyed this book. I think the world building was super cool. So to recap this book takes place in a world where magic has been stripped from the land. It is banned, it doesn't exist, and people with magical origins are called maggots, and it's seen as this very derogative term. They're seen kind of below everybody else. People with magical origin are very easily identified because they have white hair and they can't hide that white hair very well, so they are treated horribly basically by the king. And we learned that the king hates magic because his first family was killed by magicians. This is about this girl called Zelie, and Zelie's mother was killed by the king's men because she was a magician. So in this book, Zelie has a chance to bring it all back with the help of a few friends. I really enjoyed how much of a roller coaster this book was. I enjoy complex characters. Really, my favorite part of this book was the characters. So there are two sets of siblings. The first are Zelie and her brother, and they have a very different upbringing from the second set of siblings, which are the prince and the princess, who were the king's kids. And they're raised to believe magic is bad and they're pro-magic. So when they meet in the middle, things happen. But I like how it's not an issue of good versus bad. It's an issue of morality and upbringing. I think it's kind of nature versus nurture in a way. There is an enemies to lovers trope going on in this book, which I enjoy. I love that trope, but a lot of people don't like that. So I think if you don't like that type of trope in YA or in literature, you're gonna be annoyed at a lot of things that happen, I believe. But I'm all for it, so I totally enjoyed what was happening in this book. The only real problem I had with this book was the action scenes. I feel some of the scenes I couldn't really sketch out where people were in my brain. So if there was a giant fight sequence and, for example, Zelie was doing stuff and throwing magic things at this other character, I didn't exactly know where to place them in my mental map. So that's my only problem. I had to go back and reread a lot of different fight scenes because I didn't know where everybody was. I honestly can't wait for the next one because I think this book created a lot of threads that I really hope will be built on in the upcoming books. There are so many interesting storylines and ways that this book can go, so I'm excited to see what happens in the future of the series. And yeah, the next book I read was Obsidio, which is the last book in the Illuminae files, and I am obsessed with this series. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I was not disappointed. I usually am a little apprehensive about like finale books or last books in the series because I usually hate it. I think in Obsidio, the scene stealer is definitely Aiden, who is the kind of psychotic, narcissist, sociopathic AI who is kind of in love with one of the main characters in this book. Every scene they are in is just so magnetic, and I'm so attached to every single part of his or its dialogue and writing. I just really enjoyed any part with Aiden in it, and this book was full of Aiden, so I really enjoyed it, and I think that this is a pretty worthy ending for such a great series. I don't think I'm gonna talk much about this book because I kind of want to do a full series video talking about AI and popular culture and how it relates to this series. So put that one away. Next book I read was Speak No Evil, which I already did a full video review on, so I'm not gonna talk a lot about it, but I will leave a card somewhere here if you wish to see that. But it's basically the story about this high schooler in Washington DC with Nigerian parents who is in a very affluent neighborhood, goes to a very bougie school, everything's going well for him, and he realizes that he's gay and he has to deal with the effects that has, especially within his family. They're not very accepting. He gets sent to like conversion therapy in Nigeria, and his best friend and him have very heightened tensions because of this, and it's like this giant story, and it deals with police brutality and queer suffering. So it's a very angsty book, but if that's a subject that interests you, I would definitely recommend it, and I really enjoyed it. I think it had a lot of emotional depth to it. The next book I read in the month of March was They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. I adored this book. It was so interesting, and the concept was very like refreshing because it's such a short book. So it's a very self-contained story with a very original plot, so I really enjoyed that. In this universe, on the day a person dies, you get a phone call, and that phone call tells you basically you're gonna die on that day, but they don't tell you when in the day, so or how, so you don't know. You just know that that day is your last day on Earth alive. So in this book, there's this app people who get the phone call can use called Last Friends, I believe. And on this app, they could communicate with other people and talk with them if they want to hang out with them for the day, so they can be like their last friend, so they don't have to be alone on their last day on Earth. So our main character meets this other character through this app, and they go on this wild adventure and journey, and they're very two different people, but by the time the book ends, you realize that they're more similar than you ever thought they would be, and I just really loved this book. They Both Die at the End is very magical. It's very bittersweet, you know. It's sweet in the way that there's romance and it's cute and you're really rooting for these characters, but as the title of the book says, they both die at the end. So it's sad in that way because you know that they don't get beyond that. So.
And then the sound cut off and I couldn't get back, so now I'm stuck using this robot voice because Adobe sucks. And it is night already, so I'm not going to re-record, and this voice is kind of funny, so I am just going to go with it. Here I am talking about how all of the books I read dealt with similar themes, even though they were in different genres. Most dealt with familial troubles with simmering trauma, tension, and grief. So much grief in this month's books. All the books kind of complemented each other, which is sort of strange since I picked them at random. But back to grief, it was really quite interesting to see the difference in prose depending on author and genre. There were so many ways to tell the same pain, which I found sort of fascinating. So yeah. I hope you enjoyed this video and this robot voice. LMAO. Oh, and I'll see you all next video. Bye.